With that, let's move forward to agenda item 4, our Standards and Assessment Committee report. Chair Earl.
Thank you. Our first item is, let me get to the motion. The motion for the board is that the board approve R277334 Classroom Technology Draft 2 on second and final reading. And I do have 2 amendments for that.
Okay, let's get the motion out there, and then we'll turn it back to you. So the motion that came out of committee is that the board approve R277-334 Classroom Technology Draft 2 on second and final reading. Back to you, Chair Earl.
Okay, I would like to add a definition that is in code, and it's high-risk artificial intelligence interaction, and that would be right around line 49. If you did alphabetical order, it would add a new line there, a new definition, and that means the same as that term is defined in section 13-77-101. And that's the same location where you have the definition for generative artificial intelligence. So this is what's considered high-risk artificial intelligence. And so let me make this one motion because it's these 2 pieces that go together, and then I'll make another amendment that's separate. And then with that, I would add on line 203, or below that, 203, so it'd be 204. A new section 8 that says high-risk artificial intelligence interaction may not be used with students. That would be what my motion or my amendment is, if I get a second.
Okay, so the motion then that's been seconded is to add a definition on line 49 stating high-risk artificial intelligence interaction means the same as that term is as defined in section 13-77-101. And
go ahead.
And to add after line 203, paren 8, high-risk artificial intelligence interaction may not be used with students.
Okay, and I will speak to that. I'll just give you the definition of the high-risk artificial intelligence interaction. It's a generative artificial intelligence that involves the collection of sensitive personal information, including health data, financial data, or biometric data, the provision of personalized recommendations, advice, or information that could reasonably be relied upon to make significant personal decisions, including the provision of financial advice and services, legal advice and services, medical advice and services, or mental health advice and services. And then it just says, or other applicable defined by the division rule. So this is not, I think as we move into the AI field, I think we need to be cautious about just opening up broadly. And this high risk piece, until we have a better understanding of what is or isn't appropriate, I don't think we should be stepping into that, especially with students. So.
Roll down so we read less of that definition.
Yeah, if we can get that on the screen. And then Vice Chair Bollinger has a question. Maybe. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So just my question on this is I go back and look at the definition. The code that you're using for the definition actually has to do with consumer disclosures and enforcement. And so when I look at the definition and it says that we can't collect health data, financial data, biometrics, I thought that in our rule there was already a piece that they couldn't do any of the biometric piece, which would be what would be applicable with the use of AI in education. So wondering why we're using consumer code in education code.
We're already using the consumer code to define generative artificial intelligence. If you just look up one definition above where I'm putting this, a couple of definitions, we're already using that code to define generative.
Okay, so I guess my follow-up, if I may, Chair. Are you in education? Is there the use of high-risk artificial intelligence interactions? Because we do use the other piece that you're talking about, generative AI, but is this even used in education?
That's the point. Right? That we shouldn't until we have a grasp on what is appropriate. So yeah, high risk, I don't think we should be using that.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm not sure if it makes sense. Like, we can apply code from all sorts of things to education, but I'm just not sure if it is actually
Then we would
applicable.
also need to be starting to change, we're going to have to go back and modify other things here. Do you see what I'm saying? Because we're also using that same definition for generative artificial intelligence from the same code area. So then we're going to need to go ahead, we'll need to spend a little time and make up some other definitions or find some other definitions. I think because these are in code, they're very clearly spelled out. They've gone through the legislative process. I think it's a wise thing to use. Things that they're saying, be cautious of these. These are high risk areas.
One
I
more.
guess one more follow-up. So because generative AI is used in the code, in the AI code for education, is high-risk artificial intelligence also used, and that's why we're using a definition, or is that not in code for education AI?
No, it's not in the education code from last year.
But the generative AI is.
Generative AI is putting high risk, though, clarifying on the high risk piece of it. So.
Member Davis?
Would it be possible, is it a time sensitive issue to bring this back again next month or even tomorrow so we can get some clarity too from our AI expert for those of us who aren't AI experts and
Yeah,
haven't studied
I'm
this
personally
bit?
fine with it coming back tomorrow. I think it probably needs to be, our model policy will be framed around this. I don't know whether we can wait another month. Maybe we can. We've got to get going on the model policy as some of that.
So I move to postpone this to tomorrow.
Okay. There's a move to postpone this item until tomorrow's unfinished do we have unfinished business on the agenda? We usually do. Okay. Tomorrow's unfinished business. Do we have a second? I'm not hearing a second, so let's keep the discussion going. Okay. Seeing no additional lights, let me restate the motion. The motion is to add a definition on line 49. High-risk artificial intelligence interaction means the same as that term is defined in section 13-77-101. And to add after line 203, paren 8, high-risk artificial intelligence interaction may not be used with students. I see no additional lights. Let's go ahead and vote. That motion passes. It's not a potion. That motion passes 8 in favor, 2 abstention, 5 no votes. The abstentions are from Vice Chair Wood and Member Davis. The no votes from Member Lear, Member Booth, Member Reel, Member Hymas, and Member Bollinger. Go ahead, Member Davis. Oh, yeah, Member Earl made that amendment.
I'm just trying to figure out all the things she just said.
Don't put the amendment to, yeah. Okay. Chair David, well, I've got a couple of lights, but there's no motion. Well, there is a motion before us. Member Green, go ahead.
Maybe this is for AI tech and retrospective now that we voted on this. What we just voted on, can we actually do that? Is that actually possible? It's wishful thinking, but can we actually do that? Can we actually not, is there a way that we don't use high-risk artificial intelligence if we have high-risk artificial intelligence interaction? Like, is there a way to separate that? I'm just wondering. I don't know if anyone can help us.
Member Brenton.
I don't know that there is.
Assistant Superintendent Hunt had something to add on this, so I just wondered if she could clarify.
What's her title? Assistant Superintendent Hunt. Yeah, you said it right. I forgot it in the 10 seconds that it transferred. Let's get that light pressed. There you go.
You can call me ruler of the universe. That would be fine. So one of the things that's involved with this particular rule right now is that there are two portions that are going to be happening with this. The first is the rule itself and the updates that are coming as part of this new HB 273. The follow-up piece will be coming to standards and assessment in September, that includes a model policy that goes through and explains what all of these are in the rules, explains how they impact LEAs and the decisions that they're making around artificial intelligence. So these definitions that you're seeing are coming directly from either that bill or from federal legislation around high-risk artificial intelligence. The bill itself is not very prescriptive when it comes to what can and cannot be used, but what is there is the understanding that LEAs are very specifically expressing and sharing with parents what they are using and how they are using it. So I think when you see the model policy, you'll see that it does a really good job of going through and explaining to districts how they address these issues and who they need to include in sharing information about the ways and the types of artificial intelligence that are being used in their LEAs. So I don't know, I just want to get a little bit of clarification on your question, board member. I'm not sure that I understand what you're asking about, the difference between generative artificial intelligence and generative artificial intelligence use.
Member Green.
I appreciate that question. I think I'm wondering, could you, it's the high risk. Like if the, could we bring up the motion again for me? Sorry. Thank you. So we added a definition on line 49 defining high risk artificial intelligence interaction. And then we put that as defined in that section. We added, after line 203, high-risk artificial intelligence interaction may not be used with students. So it seems that schools are using high-risk artificial intelligence interactions, and what you're saying is LEA should have or create model policies on what that looks like, correct?
Yes.
And how they're going to address that. And in doing so, by adding that may not be used with students. And I'm just wondering, I guess again, is that possible? So if they are using that, is there a way that they build that into the AI systems at large where they know specifically what not to use because of students? Do we have any examples of somebody that's doing that right now?
Chair, okay. I don't have specific examples from LEAs that might be using high-risk artificial intelligence. At this point, what the code calls for is for LEAs to be very transparent about what is being used and how it's being used. In the model policy that you'll be seeing after it moves through Standards and Assessment Committee, we have some examples and we have lists of things that would be considered high risk. And we have some examples of parent communications and how those would be communicated to parents. And we have charts that describe and explain that certain types of AI cannot be used with students. So I think that it will help to be able to see that guidance and support around the model policy. The code actually really relies on the LEAs to determine this, but it is very clear that it needs to be explicitly explained and included in a policy that is voted at the local level.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Member Earl?
Just kind of to parse this out just a little bit more, one of the primary differences is you're asking the high risk piece
Can
It's
I just
collecting-
clarify? We've already voted on the high-risk piece. It's
Is
in
that
there.
the
We don't
question we're
have to.
asking? I thought we were trying to parse out that generative AI piece. It's a piece of that, but if we're not,
I
I'll talk to
think-
people later. You can talk to me later. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's. No, you're good. Our adjournment time is 7, and I've got a goal to beat that. So let's do it. Joe, don't throw out good luck in there. Okay, Jenny, go ahead.
This time, Chair.
Let me decide. No, of course it is. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So I would like to amend line, I think it's 232. I had 234 on my paper, but I think it's incorrect. And it says an LEA may provide accommodations or supports, and I'd like to add in there, leading to meaningful instruction, including. In other words, just providing an accommodation because it has to be meaningful. If as parent or someone chooses not to engage in some kind of academic process because they don't want to use generative AI or something, the academic piece that is, I'm speaking to it. If I get a second. Sorry.
Yeah.
You didn't call me on that.
I know I didn't. Sorry. That's because I got shamed last time I did. So the motion then is to amend or add after line 234, paren 2, an LEA may provide accommodations or supports leading to meaningful instruction, including. And it's been seconded. Back to you, Member Earl, to speak to that.
Yeah, once again, if a student is given that accommodation or additional supports, it actually should be meaningful instruction and not just what, you're not going to do this with the class. Okay, well then, go do a crossword puzzle or something. So it's just that making sure that it's meaningful to the accommodation.
Vice Chair Bollinger. Oh, Member Longacre, go ahead, and then Vice Chair Bollinger.
I just have a question. When we say may provide, does that mean that an LEA can deny and just say, if you don't do this assignment, then you get a 0?
Well, I don't know why they wouldn't be able to. If you want to talk about, are you leading us into a right of conscience discussion? Okay. It does say may in code. Follow up, Member Longacre. Let me get you. There you go.
And am I making myself clear? I'm just saying that if a parent chooses to opt out of an assignment that has that uses AI, does the teacher have the option to say, well, I'm not going to provide another assignment. This is the assignment.
I think we're in a different discussion here. We're in a right of conscience discussion, right? Because that right of conscience is applicable for all of these, whether it's AI or health or any other, right? So I don't know if we want to open up that conversation right now, but I don't think that I do think that you're right. This is in line with that law that's already in place. I've got Vice Chair Bollinger, and then Member Lear, then Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. If I may direct a question to the maker of the motion. So I'm reading the code that says that provide additional resources and accommodations to a student, and then looking at the words. What's the definition of meaningful instruction, and who determines that?
I mean, you would hope the educator, right? The idea is that it's saying make this meaningful, that it actually has to do with, and we can put meaningful education instruction if you want. I don't know. You can take your pick. I guess we could leave it the way it is, which means nothing, right? It just means an accommodation. This is suggesting that it should have some value to it. If you want to use the word value, and then we could define value, or if you wanted, I just think this is a way of saying it's more than just, oh, you don't want to do this. Okay, well, yeah, a time filler, a value to the student. So that's how to define it. I don't know that we have to, I guess we could break everything down and define everything If you want to do that, we can come up with a definition, but I feel like that's kind of what's self-evident, but maybe it's not.
Yeah, thank you. No, and I think that I guess the reason why I'm asking is because as an educational professional, to your point of we think that we already know what educators know is meaningful, and anybody that's in education wants to provide meaningful opportunities. And so by adding that, then I think that there's going to be more questions because it's different than what's in code. So then there's going to be questions on what does that specifically mean or what criteria, where I think that in general, educators are trying to provide what you would maybe consider like, well, I think we should all know that definition. So I just think that sometimes when we add in extra words into what code was, it just creates some more confusion. So that's why I was
How
asking
would you
if there's-
define it? Maybe is that the...
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it needs to be, well, I guess I would just say I don't think it needs to be added. So maybe that's just how I'm feeling. So thank
All right, Member Lear?
I had the same question that Member Longacre did, and I think to her point, this isn't just, these aren't accommodations to AI, these are accommodations to technology. And I know that there have already been LEAs who've said, this is the assignment, and you do it or you don't do it. And so I'm not, I don't have a solution, but if the law says may, and we're just repeating what the law says, then that to me says that an LEA can decide to say to parents, and I don't know how that LEA would work through the right of conscience and decide which law trumps which law, but I did have the same question and concern, and I think that the one LEA I'm thinking of that I know didn't provide the accommodation said to the parent, it's not doable. If 5 parents ask to do this, it stops our learning procedures because it's just too much overload on a teacher. So I just think we should acknowledge that it's a may and that LEAs can work through that, hopefully with their parents.
So the motion to amend is to add after line 234, and the new language is, what is it? It would read, paren 2, an LEA may provide accommodations or supports leading to meaningful instruction, including. So there's new language is leading to meaningful instruction. So I don't see any additional lights. Let's go ahead and vote on this. Okay, that motion fails. 8 opposed, 7 in favor. Those in favor were Member Brenton, Member Green, Member Hall, Member Davis, Member Kelly, Member Earl, and Member Carey.
Chair, point of information.
Point of information.
Question posted on what we just voted. Is that just
Yeah, I noticed that the banner part is gone.
Sometimes we put the language in and press start and then it disappears, so I have to add it after.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, we have a motion before us. Okay, that reads as follows, and it's that the board approve R277-334 Classroom Technology Draft 2 as amended on second and final reading. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. If I may just direct a question, possibly to staff. I just want to clarify that on lines 94 and 95, that this provides an opportunity for LEAs to make their own policy, that they don't necessarily have to have everything that's written in this, that they can actually have some choice. I know that was something that Representative DeFay was really pushing. And when I listened to the committee meeting, it sounded like there was some confusion and discussion saying they couldn't. Just want to clarify that this language in this rule does provide LEAs an opportunity to create their own policies at the local level.
The response is yes. Is that correct?
Yes, just want to make sure it's on record.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Member Bogus to the motion.
I actually, in 254, we need a comma. I realize that might be considered technical, but I'll make a motion if the board would like it.
Where was your comma? And let me just ask if there's any objection to adding a comma
In line 254, it's got a series of code lines, but
Yeah.
the first two are not separated by a comma.
whereas the through is the strike is struck out.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll just add a comma there. Any opposition to that? Okay. Let's put the motion back before us. And that is that the board approve R277-334 Classroom Technology Draft 2 as amended on second and final reading. Let's go ahead and vote. That passes 14 in favor, 1 abstention coming from Member Davis. Back to you, Chair Earl.
Thank you. The motion before the committee, this is related to the high school course grading requirements, Welton's bill to be specific. So the motion is that the board approve R277717 high school course grading requirements draft 1 on second and final reading.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board approve R277-717 high school course grading requirements, draft 1 on second and final reading. Member Kelly.
I have an amendment that I think that she has ready for me, and we'll pull up here. Let me just. Well, I'll make the motion and then I'll speak to the motion, but I move to amend, the board amend line 112 to read as follows: respectfully listens, interacts, and cooperates in classroom activities. And amend line 113 to read as follows: proactively communicates with teacher regarding missed classroom time due to parent excused or school excused absences.
The motion has been stated. Do we have a second? We have a second. Back to you, Member Kelly.
I felt like lines 112 and 113 were very vague and very difficult to quantify. If you're a teacher and you're trying to give a citizenship grade, how do you quantify classroom participation and personal engagement, effective communication? And I think what Representative Wilton's bill is trying to get to is to have students college ready. And so if I think it's much more specific. I understand that, but I think it's also much more measurable in terms of saying if, effective communication, if a student misses class, they're effectively communicating with the teacher to get the work that they've missed, effectively going in and making sure that that they get the work that they've missed when they were absent. So I think that it still captures what Representative Wilton was going for, but I think it quantifies.
It allows for measurable execution.
Measurable execute. Very good. Thank you, Member Bogus. So yeah, that's some thoughts there.
I've got Member Davis.
Oh, I was going to divide the question, but are you, because I wanted to keep 112. Are you saying to strike 112?
No.
Are you keeping? You're keeping the language of the words in 112?
112 would read.
Let's get you back on a, let's,
Interacts and cooperates in classroom activities.
so you're looking to strike class participation and personal engagement and replace it with
Yes,
respectfully listens, interacts, and cooperates in classroom activities.
correct.
Member Davis? Member Green? Go ahead.
This is probably to member, maker of the motion. Can you help me understand what that looks like as far as, is it a point system? Are you reviewing, 30 students every classroom and like how is that kind of recorded or judged? Also and obviously respectfully listening, I think is a big thing. That should be happening. I'm not sure how much it happens. I've seen situations where, you're a little disheartened because they're hooligans. So I like the whole respectfully listens thing. They interacts, cooperates in classroom activities. I'm just wondering, what does that actually look like? How does this manifest into a citizenship grade?
You want to respond, Member Kelly?
Sure. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and this is why I'm gonna make sure that I credit Member Bogus for this language. I got this from a rubric that she helped to develop, I don't want to micromanage how teachers implement this in their classroom. So whether that's happening on a day-to-day basis, if the teacher is saying daily, I'm giving you a score, but as a teacher, this is something that I can measure. So if I lecture for 15 minutes and I'm in front of the students and a student has their head down on the desk or a student's on their phone, and I know there's a no cell phone policy or whatever, but if they're not respectfully listening during that time period, it's easy for me to say, you didn't respectfully listen, therefore, you didn't earn these points today. And again, I don't want to micromanage how a teacher is going to implement that, but this language, in my opinion, just makes it measurable, so that I can quantify that you have met this requirement. So.
Member Bogus?
Thanks. If I could, just add on to Member Kelly's, I think that everything, I really don't like this bill. I didn't like this rule. I think it is a social credit score disguised as a citizenship grade. I think it sends us in a really bad direction in education and in society as a whole. But if we're going to have one, we need to have a clear rubric that is communicated to students and parents that tells them what they need to do or engage in to earn a score in this area. And it was probably 2013, I worked for a school district that implemented social credit scores. And I was very adamant at that time, and we developed a 10-point rubric that included things like following instructions, contributing ideas and information, contributing materials, sharing responsibilities, explaining things to others, asking meaningful questions, helping the group stay on task, asking for help with needed. And then in each one of those, and it goes on, there's like 6 more, but in each one of those quartile categories, we had very specific actions that you could observe of a student. And the highest one is obviously listed in this, the respectfully listens, interacts, and cooperates in classroom activities. And then it goes on in there that their inquiry is focused, and they're a great addition to the classroom initiative. So the focus of the day, they're not constantly distracting from the lesson itself. And so they're measurable things. And if schools implement this, they absolutely should have a rubric, in my opinion. I don't think it should be something that's willy-nilly, like 1 through 4. Oh, you seem to do great today, you get a 4. I think they should actually have to meet the actionable criteria listed in a rubric in order to earn that score, so that they know what they need to do differently the next time. if that makes sense. And without a rubric, then it becomes subjective day to day. And so I think this is a scary place to put our schools. I'm not a fan of it. But I do like this language much better than the language that is presently in the rule.
Member Davis?
I like the ending part of this motion because it gives some responsibility to the student, even if they want to choose to participate in a lot of school activities and miss the school excused. They should be communicating with the teacher. They should be seeking how to make up that work, and it does teach responsibility. And I do think this is more observable than the other one. It just speaking very briefly, I just think citizenship grades have been helpful in the past. And I'm just going to quickly say, when I was in the 8th grade, my history teacher gave me a U in citizenship. And I was so mad. I was so mad. I just was so angry.
You know what to do differently.
I went and talked to him and I said, I'm on time every day. I never miss class. I never talk when you're talking. I never break the rules. I am a good kid. And he said, you have so much to give. You have so many thoughts and ideas, and you never speak your mind. And it changed my life. And he said, if you start contributing in this class, all the amazing things that you have in your brain, I'm sure they weren't amazing as a 14-year-old, but he made me think they were, and he made me think I had something to give. I think it changed the trajectory of my life in the way that I continued through school, the way I behaved, the way I continued on throughout a professional career, and maybe even sitting here today. I hate to put that much into one citizenship grade, but I was that fired up after getting that U, and it helped me see that there's more to learning and being a student than just turning all the assignments in and keeping the rules.
Thank you. Next, we've got Member Carey, but we're going to pass on him due to his good luck comment that he made earlier. So I'm just in queue for a motion. Okay. I'm just gonna speak before Member Green, if that's okay. I understand what we're trying to do here. Some of the concern that I've had, I'm speaking against this motion, and the reason is some of the concern I've had over the past few months is that we have more and more put our hands in places where they probably don't belong. And more we've told the LEAs what you are going to do and this is how you're going to do it. And I remember running on a local control platform, which would look completely different now than it did 2 years ago when I ran, right? But regardless of that, my concern here, we have the authority to change this. Cole, you're absolutely within law. My concern here is that with your changes, 112, line 112, which says class participation and personal engagement, is now tied to classroom activities. You've tied it to classroom activities. And then 113, where it says effective communication, you have tied that to missed classroom time. So if we even use Cindy's experience of, her teacher was trying to get her to speak up about what was in her mind, and whether that was effective communication, that was, 10 years ago when you were in 8th grade, Cindy? I don't know, right? Things have changed, I get that. But now we're saying, with this motion, we're saying, and it's not before us anymore, but we're saying that 113 is tied to missed classroom time. That's what you're talking about when you say effective communication. And then for class participation and personal engagement, your suggestion is that it is tied to class activities. So I do struggle with those. And with that, I'd speak against it. So, Member Green, if you are ready.
It's more of a question. I'm going to the past again. Humor me. It seems like when I was in middle school and high school, we had the whole citizenship grade. It was an N, a U, a HS. Yeah, those ones. Why did we get rid of that? Do we anybody remember this? I don't know if it's like we got rid of it, now we're trying to bring it back, and I don't know what.
Could I ask, I mean, this is a great question, but I don't know, is it relevant to this here? I want to stay semi on track
I
here.
guess for me, I guess I could take this offline here. The reason I ask is that, we're kind of having a side conversation here, and I kind of feel the same way as we see the attendance issues. So we want something that can help track, the attendance. This builds in, like the amendment right now is trying to build in the accountability for attendance. And then you've got kids that just kind of seem to be a little bit rogue these days for whatever reasons. And we're trying to build that into getting the character, but that kind of falls underneath, another area. So we're all very well intentioned with this citizenship grading thing. And I like the clarity, but I also fear that we're going to be building in all of these things, and then it's still a sense of fragmentation like that exists. So I don't know. I guess I know trends cycle, and I think this is citizenship and attendance and all of that is also cycling through again. So we're back to trying to fix it, but I don't know. Sorry, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I've got Member Kelly. Member Carey, let me just ask a clarifier. Are you going to amend the amendment, or is this after? Okay. Back to you, Member Kelly. Then I've got Vice Chair Bollinger.
Yeah, I wanted to reply to your comment, Chair Hymas. And I've heard a lot of the same criticisms as Board Member Bogus and what I'm hoping to do is make sure that this is not a social credit score. I don't want to leave it so ambiguous that a teacher can come along and say effective communication means that you're expressing an opinion in a way that I want you to express that opinion, and therefore I'm giving you a poor grade because I don't agree with how you communicated that idea. I worked with Representative Welton a little bit on this bill, and I know that his intent was, with effective communication, hey, if a student misses class, they need to proactively go talk to that teacher. They need to, get the work that they've missed. And so I think that's why I think we're within our rule-making authority to be more specific with the rule. And so that's why I chose to make this amendment as I did, because it's much more measurable, and it's not an opinion of how I think that you are communicating. So.
Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. And I do agree with Member Kelly and Member Bogus on the ambiguity. Sometimes it is nice to have those rubrics. I totally agree with you. I also agree with Chair Hymas that this is an optional policy that districts may or may not do. So every district doesn't have to have citizenship. So I tend to agree that at a local level, they can set that more specific criteria because they can create their own policy. They just have to address those. So, but with that, just a question maybe to the drafters of our current rule. I'm curious to know on when we use effective communication, why that wording effective communication was used when it looks like the rest of the wording comes from HB 502 from code. So I'm looking at line 48 on code where it says teacher communication. So I'm curious to know what the change was, and maybe that came from committee, if the change was from teacher communication to effective communication. Is there anybody that can help me understand that?
Elise, you've got a response?
I will momentarily. Thank you, Chair. Jennifer Wadsworth, Policy Advisor. So just to clarify, effective communication as it stands in the proposed rule or in the proposed amendment?
In the proposed rule.
Okay. On which line was that one?
In rule, it was on line 113.
Okay. And I just realized I left my computer. Oh, it doesn't need to be here. Thank you. Okay. So What we were trying to do here in committee was follow the code as it was written, but create it so that it was more applicable to the LEAs as they put them into practice. So if we need to amend that, we can.
Okay, I don't have any additional lights here. The motion before us, let's bring the motion back before us here. Because regardless of if it's effective communication or teacher communication, the code or the amendment would eliminate that either way, right? So let's get, who's driving this pony? Is it on the amendment? Okay, go ahead. Okay, there's a motion to divide. Is there a second? There's a second. Is there objection to dividing? I'm not hearing any. Let's divide them. Let's get those motions before us, and let's put the first half on the table here. All right, so the motion before us is that the board amend line 112 to strike class participation and personal engagement and replace it with respectfully listens, interacts, and cooperates in classroom activities. Seeing no lights on this amendment, let's go ahead and put it to a vote. Okay, voting is open. That motion passes 10 in favor, 5 opposed. Those opposed are Member Booth, Member Reel, Member Bollinger, Member Wood, and Member Hymas. Now let's look at the second motion that came out of the divide. And that is that the board amend line 113 to strike effective communication and replace it with proactively communicates with the teacher regarding missed classroom time due to parent excused or school excused absences.
An amendment.
Yeah, yes, Vice Chair Wood, an amendment to the amendment is in order.
Could I put instead of, I'd like to move instead of striking effective communication that we add including proactively communicating with the teacher, so that the board amend line 113 to read effective communication including proactively communicating with the teacher regarding missed classroom time, because I think effective communication is so much more than just getting the assignment when you've missed a class. There's more to effective communication than that.
Okay, so the motion is to not strike effective communication, but to keep effective communication and add the word including, so that it would read effective communication including proactively communicates with the teacher regarding proactively communicating with the teacher regarding missed classroom time due to parent excused or school excused absences. Sounds like we have a second? Okay, back to you, Member Vice Chair Wood.
I spoke to it, I apologize, but I do think that effective communication is more than just discussing missed classroom time, homework, or whatever.
Member Kelly to the motion.
This is not my motion, but I would wonder if the member would be open to, in code, it's teacher communication, not effective communication. Would you be open to changing effective communication to teacher communication as it is in code?
I think what we need to do, because this is a motion that's been placed and seconded, yeah, so let's take care of this amendment to the amendment, and then we can readdress it if need be. Your question is to this amendment? Okay, go ahead, Member Green.
I'm just wondering, does this imply that the student should have communicated with the teacher before or after an absence? And does that?
That, I believe that would be not to this motion, but the one if this passes or fails, it would be proactively communicates would be there. I think your question is not necessarily to this amendment because we're saying effective communication. Maybe it is, I don't know. Do we have a,
Well, because if we don't retain effective communication, then we're just, yeah, that adds the nuance to it. I need to know if a student that may or may not have control over a parent excused absence will be, in trouble or whatever you want, a lower citizenship grade because they communicated afterwards. Do they need to know that that absence is taking place? At what point? I don't know. It seems it's getting a little sticky for me.
okay. I don't know if we have a response to Member Green's. You've got a response. I've got Member Carey in the queue. If is your response written here? Here's the issue, guys, is that we're going to sit here and we're going to say, well, I think it means this, right? Here's my intent behind it. We do this with our lawmakers. What's their intent? Well, who cares? Here's our intent with their intent, right? So I don't want to get down this rabbit hole of here's what I think it means. Well, the LEAs, they don't care, right? I mean, not trying to be rude, but it's like, no, I'm going to read this and I'm going to take what I believe this says and I'm going to go with it. So I don't know, to answer your question, I don't know if there is an answer to your question, Member Green. It's not, there's nothing written down that says you have to come see me before you leave or come see me 10 days prior to or when you get back, right? Within 10 days. So I don't know. Unless the LEA has put something in there. So. Right.
Communication, because effective can be applied if they did not know they were going to be absent. Parent excuses them, they leave class, and then they come back and say, hey, I had this. What did I miss? That would be effective communication, But I also feel like we're getting maybe a little confused if it needs to be the teacher communication, not effective communication. So effective, in essence, you before or after, if you have communicated, you have been effective.
Agreed. Okay. I'm going to go in order of the lights here. I've got Member Carey, Member Bogus, and Staff 3.
Chair, I don't have anything to add after that discussion you just had on the record. Thank you.
Member Bogus.
Thank you. So I see Member Green's point because if somebody wants to be abusive, and teachers have been abusive, which is why parents oppose these things, so they could do exactly as Member Green said and make it into a you didn't talk to me before you left, and so therefore you get a 0. That has happened. It continues to happen. But the reality is, I think the effect of this is you can't wait till after grades are posted to have the conversation. And that nothing is more irritating to a teacher than when a student just doesn't engage all semester long and then they want their grade changed in June after the report card comes out. And I think that's the intent, but nothing in this language prevents Member Green's concerns from happening. And do I still like this language better than what is proposed initially? Yes, I do. I would speak in favor of passing Member Kelly's motion. Do I still have concerns? Absolutely. Because it's not written in a way that it cannot be abused or, and I know we like to protect teachers. I get it. I like to think that I'm not one that abuses kids. But there are teachers that do. We see them in UPAC every month, and there are teachers that do and never make it to UPAC. And they abuse them through policies like this that allow them to do that. And so we do need to be careful with our words, I think, and be very cautious when we put them forward. But Those are just my thoughts. I still think this is better language than the language initially proposed. Thank you.
Okay. Elise, are we good? Go ahead.
One note for you all as you're having this really important conversation. Part of HB 502 that these changes came from direct the board to create guidance on the policies for grading in this way. So for the citizenship grading. So this rule is just a teeny tiny piece. And then in the future, in the next year, we're going to be working on that in committee to really think through all of these details that you're working on right now. So that will be coming to a committee in the next couple of months. Schools do not have to put this into effect until next school year, so a year from now. And so we have some time to do that. If you'd like to, pause this conversation and bring that to a committee, that staff is ready to help you there.
Okay. Thank you. Member Green?
This might just be a technical add. If we are for Member Wood's motion, do we need to add including into that?
Yes. So it'd be effective communication including.
I think she said it, though.
She did. No, it's part of it. It's just hasn't been put on the screen. So the motion before us is that we add or that the board retain effective communication and add including to Member Kelly's motion. So let's vote on the amendment to amend. Seeing no lights, let's go ahead and put that on the screen and open it up. That passes unanimously with one absent, which brings us to the amendment that is before us, which is now a combination of Member Kelly and Vice Chair Woods, but it states that the board amend line 113 to add including proactively communicates with the teacher regarding missed classroom time due to parent excused or school excused absences. Let's go ahead and vote on this. That motion passes 9 in favor, 5 opposed. Those opposed being Member Booth, Member Carey, Member Brinton, Member Bollinger, and Member Hymas. This brings us to the underlying motion. Let me restate it. I know we do have an amendment coming, but let me restate it to make sure that we're all on the same page here. We are on, again, R277-717. The motion is that the board approve R277-717, high school course grading requirements, draft 1 as amended on second and final reading. Over to you, Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. I have a motion I sent to staff, and it's to amend, create a new line 117, and with the following. That it would be a violation of a religious belief or right of conscious assertion made pursuant to 53G-10205. Basically, that if a student or parent is making an assertion that this policy violates their religious belief or right of conscience, that law would apply. That's the motion. And with a second, I would speak to it.
Okay, the motion's been stated. It's been seconded. Go ahead, Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. If staff could call up line 114, and basically there it's saying a teacher may not assign or reduce a citizenship grade based on, and it lists 2 items. It says, well, a student's disability. Okay, that makes sense. A valid excused absence. But I would also like to include in that list that a teacher may not assign or reduce a citizenship grade based on a violation of a religious belief or right of conscience assertion made pursuant to 53G-10-205. And I think that's important because a valid excused absence, as defined in 53G-6-201, may not include an absence that a parent takes based on their religious belief or right of conscience. So it's not duplicative. We need that extra protection for students when they exercise their First Amendment right for religious belief or right of conscience, and that's why I feel the motion's appropriate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, let me restate the motion, because I don't see any lights. So let me restate the motion then. And that the motion is that the board add a line to R277-717-4 that reads, C, a violation of a religious belief or right of conscience assertion made pursuant to 53G-10-205. Member Bogus.
Just read that. Do we need, and maybe it's to the maker of the motion, do we need the violation of religious belief? Or can we just say it cannot be reduced based upon a right of conscience assertion made pursuant to? Because the two are different, in my opinion. A teacher violating a student's religious belief is very different than a right of conscience assertion. Unless I'm misunderstanding you, I think they're two different things.
Okay. That's to the maker of the motion. Do you want to respond or have a response? Member Carey, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure I understand what's being proposed or what's being said. So if there's some clarification.
So either it's duplicative or they're two different things. So I'm wondering if we need the first part, the violation of a religious belief or right of conscience. To me, they're either one and the same or they're two different things. And a teacher violating a student's religious belief is not.
Can I just point out, Vice Chair Bollinger just pulled up the code. It does say a student, this is 53G-10-205, Section 4, a student's parent may waive the student's participation in any aspect of school that violates the student's or the student's parent religious belief or right of conscience. So both are in code is what was
So then should we
out.
remove the violation of? I'm wondering what. A religious belief or right of conscience assertion. Then I would make that amendment that we remove a violation of a. I think that would read better and be more clear in practice. And maybe just a violation of, because the noun marker would be essential.
So you want to amend the amendment by removing a violation of, is that correct?
Yes, please.
Is there a second? There's a second. It's been spoken to.
Yes.
Ish. Okay. Is there opposition to this amendment? I'm not seeing any. So let's relook at this then, and it would read a religious belief. So in context, it would read in 3, a teacher may not assign or reduce a citizenship grade based on a religious belief or right of conscience assertion made pursuant to 53G-10-205. Okay, that's the motion before us. Let's go ahead and vote. Le- that, that motion passes 14 in favor, 1 abstention coming from member Reel. We are back to the underlying motion, and that is that the board approve R277-717 high school course grading requirements draft 1 as amended on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, let's vote. Okay, that passes 12 in favor, 3 opposed, those coming from member Bogus, member Green, and member Earl. Chair Earl, board members, do we need a break for a few minutes, or are we good to keep going? You want to keep going? Okay. Did you say, if I got one person saying I need a break, I've got 2, 3, so we get 3 breaks. Okay. Let's just pause right here. We're on agenda item 4.5. Can we put 7 minutes on the timer? Thank you. This is the Child Sexual Abuse and Human Trafficking Instructional Materials Approval. So we will go back to Chair Earl whenever you're ready.
I'm ready. Okay. We have 3 motions coming out of this section, and I just at the start want to just say thank you to staff over the years and board members. And it's to the point that when we have these items coming before these curriculum items, we're not having a lot of problems with them. Like, we're weeding out the ones that don't meet Utah code, and the people that are putting them forward are making sure they align with law. So it's just nice that the amount of time we're spending is in reviewing them, not in, saying, I don't, this piece doesn't align with law, that type of thing. So there you go. There's enough talk to maybe get a few more people back in here, maybe not. Okay. So the first amendment, the first motion, I'm going to make them separately. Is that the way you would like me to do that?
How did it come? Did it come out of one motion from committee?
Okay, we can do all 3. If so, let me just speak to number 3. At the end of that, if you see it, it says, if changes were made to the curriculum discussed in committee. Let me tell you what the 2 changes were, and they did make these.
Okay.
The one,
We are back
3.5.
to agenda item 4.5. The
4.5.
Child Sexual Abuse and Human Trafficking Instructional Materials. And let me just make sure that we're all clear, because there's 3 different, what are these called, programs? That are up for approval. We're putting them in one motion, but Chair Earl is going to speak to...
I'm going to speak to the 3rd item because
Okay.
we asked for 2 things. I'm going to tell you what those are, and I'm going to tell you what they did. First of all, we asked him to change revenge porn to sextortion, because that's what we use in our law. We don't use revenge porn anywhere. So we asked him to align it with the provisions of our code. The second one was they had resources from Ohio. We said, well, that's great, but we actually have kids in Utah. So they aligned those resources with Utah's resources. Those 2 things were completed. And so just letting you know when you see here that they've updated their resources to reflect those accurately. Okay. I'll make the motion now. Okay. The motion is that the board approve the following.
One more. Well, the motion hasn't come out yet.
Well, I'm going to wait a minute then.
Sorry. No. You're going to make the motion. There's a point of information here asking if yes. So the motion hasn't been set before the board from committee yet.
Yes.
Chair Earl is doing
I'm
that
doing
right
that
now.
right now. Okay. So it's number 1 is 24852, Education to Protect, L-6, Abuse Prevention, Elementary Students, Child Sexual Abuse. Number 2 is 24846, On Watch, Combating Trafficking Through Education, Adults Serving Youth. And number 3 is 24850, Venture Safe Schools, Human Trafficking Awareness, Grade 6.
Thank you, Chair Earl. The motion has been stated. It's been clarified. It's on the screen. It is now open for any questions. If there are questions, remember that the motion is to approve these three programs. Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. And maybe this is just a point of clarification, but it was my understanding that revenge porn is a separate and distinct category than sextortion, because you can post for revenge and not necessarily seek to extort anything from another party. So are we losing that distinction in this change?
And this is regarding 24850, the third one, is that right? This is,
Yeah, we asked the sextortion be put. Sextortion was not in there at all, and that is in the code. So we asked them to change that out. If we wanted to have them put that in with sextortion, we could do that.
is there a difference? I think that's the question. Is there a difference? Is revenge porn captured in sextortion? And
Do we have a place for definitions? I don't know. I wouldn't be able to answer that question.
I think Member Carey's point is it's not, you're just posting something. There's no extortion taking place.
Correct. There's still harm and there's still damage,
Right.
but you're not seeking to extort anything. So
Well, let me ask this, Chair Earl, because we've got three here. You spoke to the third one regarding these two topics, which I don't know why I shouldn't, I'm uncomfortable to keep repeating, but are they covered in the other ones? Or you know what I mean? Is this something that we need to look at a broader picture and say, okay, we need to make sure that this is in the standards that we require for these programs?
We could. I
that's what
just
I'm
don't
saying.
think that to best of my knowledge, and I haven't done a deep dive. I think sextortion is the term that we've been making sure is in there. It wasn't in the document, but revenge porn is in law and code, so we could, not necessarily in this section, but it is there. So if we wanted to make sure both were there, we could do that. Or we could even make sure in our policy, we could have it come next month and
So I guess
update it so it's that.
that's my point, is I don't think that this Venture Safe Schools would have an issue putting it in there. But if
I
we're
don't
going to
think so
require
either.
it for them, we need to require it for all of them.
We all had to sign the disclosure agreement.
right.
Yeah, I just couldn't, I couldn't tell you if the others, how they addressed this. Meaning they may not have even used that terminology. Yeah, but they still would have addressed it in a broader scope. And I can pull up I can see if you'll have to give me a few minutes, I can look and see what our rubric is, right? That would address that type of a thing where, intimate images and what way it addresses that. It just was, this is how this entity used it. So
Follow up, Member Carey.
Apparently.
Just clarity. I just want to make sure the record's clear. I am not opposing the inclusion of sextortion. My concern is we just don't lose revenge porn in that definition. So I'm looking to protect individuals who fall into either or both categories. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Member Green?
Well, and I appreciate the clarification, like the clarifying question there. They are different. And I guess now that that's kind of been brought forward, I think legally and practically, they have two different definitions and purposes. So I just now wonder, unless Member Earl has just discovered something more, maybe we put this off until after lunch just to make sure, or tomorrow. I don't know.
Chair
Because
Earl?
I need to know now how that's going to look.
Yeah.
With if we're doing both in those and asking them to include both, what that will look like.
So and this is a good reminder, is that sextortion is in our rubric or our recommendations. Revenge porn isn't currently. And so anything that has come up to this point would align with those provisions. But that doesn't mean that we can't ask for our rubric to come forward and ask for it to align with those provisions then. Does that make sense? So it does align
Yes.
with what we have currently. That's what.
So for purposes today, everything of these three align.
Yeah.
And what we're saying is there's obviously some concern from everybody that revenge porn needs to be addressed. And we need to bring back a rubric that says, put this in there. Make sure that these companies are addressing this.
If we want to use that term, I would dare say that the way it's broadly, and I'll have to look, I'll look, probably still covers that. It just isn't identified with that specific label in our rubric.
So I don't want to give you an assignment, but if you'll look into that, I think
I will
that would be
look into it.
helpful.
Yep.
For purposes of right now, the motion is before us that the board approve the following, knowing what we know about at least the third one with the change, but work is forthcoming as well. So let me restate the motion, and that is that the board approve the following. 24852, Education to Protect. L6, Abuse Prevention, Elementary Student Child Sexual Abuse. 24846, On Watch, Combating Trafficking Through Education, Adult Serving Youth. 24850, Venture Safe Schools, Human Trafficking Awareness, Grade 6. If changes were made to the if changes were made to the curriculum discussed in committee, which we have discussed here. So, seeing no additional lights, let's go ahead and put this to a vote. Okay, that passes 12 in favor, 2 abstentions, 1 no vote. The abstentions from Member Carey and Member Green, the no vote from Member Bogus. Back to you, Chair Earl.
Okay. The next item is our standards review process. And what I'm going to do is kind of go through the major changes. And I have one section 2 that with a couple of changes in it, and then we'll see where the discussion goes. If there's a lot of discussion, we might move it till tomorrow. If not, we'll go ahead and move it forward. So just a couple of things here that I'm just going to go through this so you know there's some significant changes here. So the pre-revision is that we wanted to make sure that things were not considered until they've been implemented for at least 5 years. And that's so that we just don't have a quick turnover of standards, that they actually have time to be implemented and out there for a period of time. Under the second section, the writing committee applicants are invited to apply through a formal public request outlining qualifications and expectations. This is a change from what we've been doing. Usually we've just been, staff or other entities have been submitting names. This allows anybody to submit themselves so they can put their name in through a formal process, and then they would be looked at based on qualifications and expectations. Both the writing committee and the the review committee, we've asked them to establish and pick liaisons, someone to be a spokesperson for them so that there is a method of communication between the board and the committees themselves. And I'm just looking down here. Okay, I have some amendments during the research phase. On the number 3, the committee collaboration, the lead liaisons for the review committee and writing committee, this is after the board recommendations are approved. So the review committee brings the recommendations to us. We then take those recommendations and we decide which of those recommendations we want to be focused on. Those are then sent to the writing committee. So the leads for those writing committee and the review committee will meet together to review the recommendations. And board members may be present for that. So we try to create an element of board being available in some areas. On number 5, writing committee present the initial draft. That's what we've had. But they're going to present it. The review committee will have a little bit more engagement. That's the initial committee that was put together and board members. And then we will maintain the 30 days that board members, after they have the initial draft, can submit recommendations. And in here we have that board members may meet with stakeholders and community members while considering recommendations. And then, sorry, let me get the next one up here. And then we have the 30-day window, right? And then those revisions come back. Those can be, the board approves, either goes public or goes to the writing committee for additional revisions. That's on section 6. On number 5, this one we cut down from 90 days to 45 days. That's the public review period. And it's still, we have to meet the same criteria, but we were trying to find a way to kind of condense some things. So that's one recommendation there. And then that's on number 7, 40-day.
We just need to
45-day.
scroll that to the next screen.
And I
yeah.
think we
Thank- there
looked
you
at we looked at a number of states, and that usually it's 30 to 45 days, if I remember correctly. Can someone confirm that? Nobody did. I don't think anybody did 90. I think we were the only ones that were extending it for that extensive time period. So that's, like I said, that's a recommendation. On 8, the review committee lead liaisons of the writing committee and members of the board meet to review the public comment and any additional suggestions.
Can we scroll to the next page on the
Yeah,
screen?
sorry.
That's
At
okay.
8.
Let's make sure we're kept up. There we
That's
go.
different than we've had before, so that allows board members from that public comment to be involved with the review and writing committee. So the review committee will have more of a role in this than they previously did. Let's see, on number 10, review. The review committee would become literally that, a review at every stage instead of just at the beginning, and then they don't have anything to do. Again, they don't have any feedback. Then on 10, the review committee reviews the updated draft for clarity and makes their final recommendations to the writing committee if there's any. And then the rest of it is similar to what we have already. It comes before us in the Standards and Assessment Committee with any amendments that people have, final amendments, and then the full board, and then the implementation. Okay, so I do have an amendment, a couple of amendments, but we can
haven't
do
yet
questions or
put
whatever
a-
you want to do.
We haven't yet put a motion from the committee.
Oh, my goodness. Let me do that really quick. Okay, the motion is that the board approve the updated standards revision process June 2026.
Thank you. The motion that came from committee is that the board approve the updated standards revision process June 2026. I know that you have an amendment. I've got,
Let's go with questions.
let's go questions first. I've got Vice Chair Bollinger first, and then I've got Bogus, Davis, and Carey.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I really want to thank all of the staff that was involved in this intense process and for the committee for taking this on. This was no easy lift. I know you guys talked about it for several months and months, and I really just appreciate the work that you've done on this. I was really impressed with all the information and the backups, even like the process of every single state. Like, it was really interesting to go and look at what all the different states do. And there's some states that don't even have a process or review. There's like Massachusetts, and they're one of the highest performing states. So that was really fascinating. I do appreciate the ability to find like a win-win solution where there was still some ability for those that wanted to serve on committees to have some privacy, but then those that were willing to serve. I think that's a great compromise. And I love that having the review committee involved along the way, I thought was great too. So thank you for all of the changes. Mike, one question I have is, as I'm looking through all the documents, so when I look at the document that says Utah State Board of Education Standards Revision Process, in the pre-revision it says that they can be considered after a minimum of 5 years of standard implementation. Then on another document, it says on the standards process overview, it says starting 5 years or more after the implementation. And then it says that they have to be at least 6 years of implementation on that same document. And then when you look at the chart, the timeline chart, it says 10-year cycle. So that's just really confusing. Are we 5 years, 6 years, 10 years? I just think that we need to make sure that we're very clear on that timeline.
So the one we're moving is the updated, If you're looking on it, it's the first document. So that would be the one that would be the official one. So it's the very first item under there. At least it is on mine. So it says the updated. So the wording in there would say, the core standards queuing rubric may not be brought forward for revision consideration after a minimum of 5 years of, that probably needs to
That's
be
where I'm
cleaned up a little bit.
confused.
Okay, so what would you like to do there?
Well, was the intent of the committee for it to be reviewed every 10 years? So would it have to be a minimum of 10 years, or is it after implementation, because it takes like 3 years for implementation, so would it be, did you guys mean every 7 years, so there would be
It'd
new
be
ones
closer
every...
to 7 years. So it would be after we've approved it and it's been implemented for 5 years. So it would be the implementation. So that would be closer to 7 or 8 years, depending on the implementation cycle. Well, let's get it right.
So it doesn't sound like we have an amendment, but there might be one coming. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
work on it.
Let's move next to Member Bogus.
Thank you. I just have a couple of comments and one question. One is, I don't think our teachers should have anonymity if they're on a committee. I think they should have accountability, not anonymity. And so if they don't want to participate in the process and have accountability, then maybe they shouldn't participate in the process. And I think that anonymity needs to be removed. We don't get anonymity in this room, and I don't think they should get anonymity. I think if their peers need to hold them accountable for what's going on in the standards writing process, then their peers should be able to hold them accountable. And how they do that is governed by workplace standards. They can't harass them. They can't do any of those weird things. So I think that accountability should be there, and I think we should remove that part of this. Secondly, I am concerned that we don't have enough public comment or parental input throughout this process. I know that it's in there. I just don't think we have enough of it. And my final question that's more direct is, we know that it takes at or about 8 years to come into this process, right? And get assessment and test scores back on almost a full cycle of standards implementation. So my question would be, are we scaling it back to 5 years because we need to, because we're adopting bad standards, or is there another reason that we're doing that?
Okay, the 5 years is being addressed with Member Bollinger's looking at a potential motion. So that's going to be up for discussion at another time.
Okay.
Your other two were potential motions, but I don't know if we have a motion coming.
Well, I could make a motion, but I think that we would have to delay this because it would be multiple sections of this document. Or we could just direct staff to amend it based on the overarching thing, the overarching idea. It's up to you.
It's up to me is calling on Member Earl. Go ahead.
Two things. For kind of the very reason with that parent input, the writing committee not the writing committee, the review committee is the committee that the legislature puts into place that does have the parents on it. Where previously that was only at the first. So we put the writing committee or the review committee throughout so they could give that feedback. So I would argue that this actually increases that, doesn't decrease it. The anonymity piece is not actually in here. What's in here is that there is a liaison that can report out and meet with board members and other people. So that was the intent of that. The anonymity would be the contract that they would, if that's often and I say often, it's a standard operating procedure. So that would need to be where that is addressed. And I do agree. I feel like if someone's part of this process, people should know who's writing the standards. So they need to know that up front, that if you're going to participate in this, that you need to know, and that's part of the that qualifications and expectations, that it's very clear that your name's on here. Otherwise, I just think that otherwise we have people that can go out and do whatever they want. So.
Well, since the buck stops in this room,
but there is no anonymity in the document.
Well, it's just hard for me. I'd rather somebody say, well, Matt, the standards are no good. Why did you approve them? Then, hey, let's go attack Mrs. Smith because she suggested bad standards, right? I don't know how we do that to people who are trying to help us out here. But anyway, going down the list, I've got Member Davis next. Go ahead. Sorry, did you have a follow-up, Member Bogus?
Quickly, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this review committee, is that the RISE committee? Because I don't know of any other committee appointed by the legislature.
There
other than
is-
the RISE.
By statute, these individuals are appointed, their parents appointed that have kids in the school. That's what the review committee is.
So it's different for every set of standards?
Yeah. Yeah, it would be.
Okay.
Okay. So who do we have next? Member Davis, go ahead.
Is it when we have documents like this that have a lot of changes, it's really helpful to have a status quo document and then strikeouts of language that is being taken out and then additions, just like we do for every single board rule. So if we could if someone has one of those already, that would be really helpful to just have emailed out to the board really quickly. The other thing I just wanted to mention, and maybe I just need to move to amend this, but I would, I'll amend that the liaison add the language if one volunteers. And if not, then it will be status quo and the staff will be the liaison. And if I get a second, I'd like to speak to the motion.
Let's formulate that motion on the screen and get it put together. And it sounds like we have a potential, or a second, not a potential,
Okay.
but we'll make sure we get the motion correct though. Elise, sorry. No, we blame Vice Chair Bollinger, not you. Member Davis has a motion that we'd like to get on the screen, if that's okay.
I would just like to amend the section that asks for a liaison for the writing committee to have the words, if one volunteers. And if not, the staff will be the liaison.
So that would be under section 1.
Is that correct, Member Davis?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
the motion to amend is to amend the section, which is, it's, if I'm correct, section 1, bullet 3. Is that where you're seeing this? That's, okay.
And I'd like to speak to it.
Yep. To amend section 1, bullet 3, that asks for a liaison for the writing committee to have the words, if one volunteers, and if not, staff will act as the liaison. So we're going to have to mess with that wording to see how it will read exactly, but go ahead and speak to your motion.
I just think these people are not elected officials, and you know, they're there. They're asked to come, give your expertise, write down your things. We'll tell you what we like and we don't like. You can make changes to what we like and what we don't like. And even after you go away, we can still make changes to what you like and you don't like. So I don't think that these folks should have to be known, to Chair Hymas's point, and certainly shouldn't have to act as a liaison. You know, this would essentially force one of them to do that. And if one is willing, that's just fine. But if one is not willing, I think we can continue as status quo, where we're having staff be the liaison between the committee and the writing folks. And well, I'll do another one later, but that's fine.
So Here's who thank you, Member Davis. The motion is to amend Section 1, Bullet 3 to add the words, if a committee member volunteers, otherwise staff will act as a lead liaison. I've got in the queue, I've got Member Carey, Member Green, and around the horn to Member Bogus. Is that to this, are any of these to this motion or to this motion and Member Green, this motion, Member Green, or the underlying motion? Maybe? Okay. You don't have to conjure up anything, just, you don't have it, you don't have it. Member Bogus, go ahead.
I just would speak against this motion. I think that when you come to work on these committees, part of that is defending your thinking. And there's no difference between defending your thinking before the writing committee and defending the committee's thinking before the board. There shouldn't be an apprehension to defending your ideas. If your ideas are of quality, they're going to hold up. And if they're not going to pass the scrutiny test. And this idea that we can just hide under a guise of anonymity and delegate that role to staff, that puts our staff in a horrible position. Case in point is the math standards. It puts our staff in a terrible position when they have to be the go-between because people want to hide behind this wall of anonymity instead of being accountable. So I would just speak against the motion. I think that the committee should have liaisons, and I think that if their ideas are high-quality ideas, they're going to pass the scrutiny test. And they should be able to communicate that as professionals. They can communicate it in their professional space, in their jobs. They should also be able to communicate it before this board or before the Standards and Assessment Committee. Thank you.
Okay. Member Green?
Well, in committee, I had lots of questions about just the liaison and the whole writing committee and what roles. I mean, I laid out a slew of questions there in detail, like what that relationship looks like if they get authority because they are a liaison. Is that equivalent to a board member? There's all the logistics that come with even formalizing a position like this. We tried to develop that. First, I'm wondering, did we resolve that? And do we have a document outlining what that role looks like on paper? Because that affects my vote towards even this, because I need to know if it's an official role that has that criteria outlined in print. The second is that I do believe that writing committee, for the sake of transparency, and I guess the scrutiny test of where the committee is going with writing those standards, I would like to see it. If we're going to make it formal, let's make it formal, and we need to have that. And anybody serving in that committee has a willingness to be able to take that position, because I think it just adds quality. So I would probably speak against this motion for those reasons.
Okay. Member Green, one follow-up to your own comment. Hold on one second. There you go.
Thank you. And maybe if it's not the right time, I am wondering if we were able to formalize this position in writing. We're formalizing it in this draft, but we haven't formalized anything yet that I know of as far as what the duties and obligations are for being in the writing committee and being a lead liaison. And those are capitalized. They look pretty formal. Just want to make sure we've built that quality check. Whoever wants to answer that.
Okay. Next, I've got Member Carey to this amendment.
Thank you, Chair. I support the motion, and because the way I envision it is you have people willing to serve on this committee, and then they sit around a room and say, okay, who wants to be the liaison? If nobody steps up, I mean, how do you force someone to liaise? How do you say, well, you're going to do this? So it's not anti-transparency. I believe the members should be known to the public. But I look at that as separate and apart from this motion, which is this has to be something voluntary. I don't think we could compel someone to assume that position if they're just not willing to serve there. Thank you.
Except for staff. We will compel somebody. Okay. Member Green.
And I think Member Carey's argument maybe highlights my argument. Have we formalized this position anywhere? Just this formalizes the lead in this document. Member Rill, if you have something to share.
So, yeah, in committee, go ahead, hit your mic and fill us in here.
I was just saying that during committee, Megan showed us an outline of how that whole process would work, and she formulated the whole workflow for the liaisons and picking them. And I was just mentioning that from our committee meeting.
So it's in this document already.
We reviewed it in
here.
our committee meeting.
Yeah.
And while I have the microphone, part of the reason why this part came up about the liaisons was because this is my 4th year on standards, and I have found that when we are able to talk to and hear from these experienced educators and folks on the writing committee, we are able to better understand some of the changes they'd made and why they made those changes. It saves us time in our committee meeting. It allows us to have a better understanding of some of the nuances on a lot of these standards. I know during the SEED standards review, we heard from educators on the writing committee. They provided us great insights and information about, so when I teach this part of the course, this is why this part is important. And then during our ELA standards review, we had the same thing. We had someone from the writing committee come and talk to us and explain some of the different pieces of the ELA standards. And so we want to be able to talk to these educators and folks on the writing committee, but we do not want to place the burden on everyone on the writing committee to be required to show up to meetings on top of their other jobs and their teaching requirements and things that they have going on. And so the liaison was a really good compromise between requiring the writing committee to come meet with board members all the time and explain all of their decisions in their standards writing, and being able to still hear from and understand some of the changes or questions that we have as a committee. So that's why the liaison piece came up. And I think that it's a real benefit to have one person from the writing committee to be able to represent those that have written these standards and help us understand the changes that they have made. And so I really support this liaison, and I know that Megan has done a lot of work with her team to work through, the process of how they'd be picked and their responsibilities and what that looks like from their perspective, as well as what we see as their responsibility as the liaison. And so I highly suggest that we support this liaison piece, and that I think it's a really good way of balancing the all of the work and things that they need to do as a writing committee member, but also giving us the opportunity to have a better understanding of some of the changes that they've made.
Thank you. You mentioned a document that was reviewed in standards. Is that in backup? Can you tell us which one that one is? There's quite a list here. There's 6?
Yes. It's the standards process over. It's standards.
It's the standards process overview document. That's the 3rd one down for this item. It's the one currently on the screen as well.
Standards
So that's what it looks
process overview, June 2026.
like. Correct.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I forget what the motion is, if I'm honest with you. Maybe we're on an amendment. It's section 1, bullet 3. I just can't remember. There we go. If a committee member volunteers, if no one volunteers, staff will act as the lead liaison. So that's the motion before us. We have Member Earl, Member Carey, and Member Davis. Are you speaking to this motion, or are we ready to vote? You are, Member Davis? Okay, go ahead.
I just want to make it clear that I support the liaison idea, and I think it could be actually quite helpful. But if nobody on the committee is willing, depending on what, maybe it's a high controversial space, or I don't know. I just think we need a fallback. If nobody's willing to do it, then we need to be able to have staff to do it. That's all. Everything else can stay the same. The whole process with the liaison can stay the same, but we do need a fallback if somebody's unwilling to act in that role.
Okay. So the motion is to amend section 1, bullet 3 to add the words, if a committee member volunteers. If no one volunteers, staff will act as the lead liaison. Let's go ahead and put it to a vote. That passes 9 in favor, 6 opposed. Those opposed being Member Booth, Member Green, Member Reel, Member Wood, Member Bogus, and Member Brinton. Okay. Next, we've got Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. I just speaking to the main motion. Are the members of the writing committee and the review committee, are these paid positions?
Are they compensated? I don't know if they're necessarily, are they hired like a position, or are they compensated for their? The writing committee, yes. The review committee, no. Is that what I'm understanding?
So it's my understanding from the discussion that the writing committee members are paid. Is that like a jury duty stipend, or is that by the hour? I can't imagine anyone's getting rich off of it, but I would like to know. And Chair, I'm just trying to better understand, because to me this is a crucial part to the anonymity component. If people are receiving public funds for their service, I'm not sure if they should be able to remain anonymous as a matter of good policy. So that's why I'm inquiring down this road. Thank you.
Megan, you want to field those?
Sure. Megan Everett, Director of Teaching and Learning. So the cost that currently in the legislation, the review committee cannot be paid as it's stated in the code, so that would have to be changed. The writing committee is paid in alignment with our participant support costs. So if there is a reason for them to travel here, they use the government rate, and we help support that. And then they are paid approximately $30 an hour. Well, I think exactly $30 an hour. Depending on the budget available, sometimes that's up to a max of, and we give them an estimate of the amount of time that we expect it will take. Obviously, sometimes revisions take longer than originally allocated, and we reallocate for that.
I do, Chair. So we just went through this process with the math standards, right? We had a writing committee for that, I imagine. Do we know approximately how much in total members of the writing committee were paid for their services at this $30 an hour reimbursement rate?
Are we going off into a different direction here? Is the number relevant to the anonymity? Is it like a threshold saying, well, if they made $500, keep anonymity. If they made $5,000, don't. Yeah, well, there's no motion. The motion we already voted.
This is a new.
We're back to the. We're back to question the underlying motion.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I do think that it's important, Chair, just to have a better understanding of, one, I would just like to know for general awareness, and I think it does tilt the scales in terms of, again, if it's a jury duty stipend, I'm less concerned, but I don't know whether this is a 50-hour undertaking, if this is a 500-hour commitment, if this is a 5,000-hour commitment. And I think those questions are important. I'm not asking to know what a particular member of the committee may or may not have been paid, but just in general, I would like to know how much was paid to this committee as a whole to write the math standards.
Do we, as a board, determine that as we send things back and say, work on this again, right? It's not, could we give a set? The math standards, I'm hearing math standards, but when this is over, we still have this process for a standards revision, right? So that's what, doesn't it depend on us, how much they would get paid? Or for how long they would work on the standards? So that would vary. That's my, I guess that's my question back to, or my point, not question.
Sure, but it was my understanding that some members of the math writing committee were begging for mercy because we kept sending revisions back. So again, I'm just looking at it as we're looking at this whole process in its entirety, and I understand that there's statute that governs a portion of this, but the board also has flexibility. So just knowing, I mean, what have we paid to date to the math writing committee? That, I don't think that's rocket science. I think that's a line item on a ledger somewhere.
Yeah, Megan, I don't know if, I don't want you to throw something out if you don't have it. Let me, hold on a second. There you go.
Yeah, I can tell you what we've paid about for the math standards in total. I do not know the breakdown of what specifically went to writers. And the number of writers that we started with some years ago and the number of writers that are remaining standing might not be the same. So it's all governed by our participant support cost policy. So for math standards, it's been about $82,000. Typically, we budget about $40,000 to $50,000. With how long math has gone on, that's taken more. Math started with about 50 writers. PE standards, by comparison, are less robust than the math standards. They needed fewer writers. They've allocated about $14,000 for the process right now.
And so now we want to say, well, we had 50 that started. Here's those people who have jumped ship, right? And here's those who have stayed on, right? You talk about anonymity. I worry about it. I guess that's my short thing. But go ahead, Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. The other issue, I just wanted to make sure that I have this written down correctly. We're going from a 90-day public comment period to a reduction of 45 days to a 45-day public comment period. Is that correct? And just if I could speak to that, I'm concerned because I think about over the summer, I think it's really difficult to get messaging through to the public when they're on vacation, they're on trips. And I also think like at the end of the year, that Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's period, that 45-day evaporates really quickly. And so even though maybe much of the year, 45 days maybe is appropriate, I think 45 really jeopardizes the public's ability to be aware of changing standards that are going to be in place now apparently for 10 years or 7 years. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the consistency. I appreciate the savings to school districts by a longer term. But I am very concerned about the reduction from 90 days to 45 days. I think we effectively cut out parent feedback with that reduction. And the anonymity, again, if they're receiving public funds, I think it's bad policy to say you're being paid by the Utah State Board of Education and you have the right to remain anonymous. I don't think that's good policy. So I'll be voting against this proposal if we can't address those items. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. I've got Vice Chair Bollinger and then Member Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I actually have a motion ready.
Okay.
And with a second, I'd like to speak to it. The motion is that the board amend the pre-revision process. So I'm on the Utah State Board of Education standards revision process. So they updated the very top document just so we're all tracking on where we're at. But so that the board amend the pre-revision process bullet 2 by striking 5 and replacing it with 7. So in context, it would read the core standards queuing rubric may only be brought forward for revision consideration after a minimum of 7 years of standards implementation.
Okay, the motion's been stated. Do we have a second? We have a second. Back to you, Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you. We've had a lot of discussions about the timing of standards and the impact that it has in schools and classrooms and on teachers and on funding. And if you're changing things every what has been 5 years, then you're having to get new curriculum, new assessments. It's very expensive, and I will tell you, it leads to teacher burnout and not necessarily improvement of student learning. Especially when we're changing the standards, we're also changing the assessment, so then we're also moving the target. So we're not even comparing apples to apples anymore if we're changing it so frequently. The 7 years, so this 7 years instead of the 10. So let me just explain a little bit. If you look at the chart that shows what the process is, it typically takes 3 years. That's our process. If you're doing a review and then you're rewriting them, then the earliest you could put new standards into place is it keeps you at that 10-year cycle. So starting the queuing at the 7 years allows that. So that's the change. That's the reason for the change from the 5 to the 7. And as I was talking to Megan, typically, the review, that queuing piece goes out to LEAs to get feedback on what's going well with the standards, what needs to change. You can start that at year 7 and then provide it annually. It doesn't mean that has to trigger any changes yet if it's not needed. Because again, we don't want to change them if there's nothing needed to change. This also, the way that this is written, still allows us to change standards if there's a change in the law. And it also allows the board basically to retain the ability to request a change in standards. So if there's some reason where whatever is happening in the world or whatever we feel like our students aren't performing, we can still have the power to do that. But it also allows, it's not staff starting that process sooner. So that's the reason for my motion. Thank you.
Okay. Member Davis?
If I ask a question on this motion, can I keep my spot in the line for my other question on a different square? I just have a question on this. If either on the 5 years or the 7 years, if there's some big, say, scientific discovery or something that no one knew, do we have to wait 6 or 7 more years or 5 more years before that could be added if the board chooses to add it? Or are we definitely on hold until the 7 years? Or is it the 7 years or the 5 years, just more of a holistic, big, huge revision of the whole thing?
Thank you for that question. The way that I read it is that this still allows us to start it earlier if we need to for the exact reasons you're talking about. And again, just like the Standards and Assessment Committee had just decided to do just like with the social studies standards, the changes with the elementary, you're not doing a holistic one, you're doing a partial one. So it allows the Standards and Assessment Committee to have that flexibility from the way that I understand it.
Member Earl?
I am actually going to speak towards the 5, or in other words, against this. And here's the reasons why. It will not be on the queuing rubric. Just because something's on a, right now, everything's queued every year. This makes it so that it's after 5 years, which does not mean at 5 years we're going to be redoing it. I worry at 7 years that it may make it so that it's harder to actually redo standards, if that makes sense, versus the 5 makes it available, but it still doesn't, it's not a quick turnaround, right? It allows that space, and then it's on the queuing rubric, but the queuing rubric does not force it to be brought forward. It just starts showing up, and we're starting to ask questions. So I actually think I like the 5, and that I think that's kind of where we went back and forth quite a bit in our committee on that. I just wouldn't want the 7 to be used as an excuse to say, well, we're waiting for 7 before we start really looking at something if it needs to be addressed. So anyways, and I still think you're right. I want it further out, but right now everything every year is brought forward, which is just not a good use of time because we've already just, if we've redone standards, why are we queuing it up every year to look at? It should be the 5-year, and then we begin that process. So I would err on the 5.
Member Brenton?
Okay, I wasn't clear on this because I thought to do a whole overhaul of the standards, it already was at like a 5 or 6 year queue, and we were trying to spread it out to more of a 10-year queue or as needed. If we needed to do small revisions, there's a new discovery, there's something in the legal code that's changed, we already do that. So I was thinking the 7 was where we would look at looking at it in a more holistic way so that we're spreading it out.
Member Earl?
The key thing here is standards implementation. Standards are not, after we pass them, it takes about 2 years before the implementation. So it does equal a 7-year spread from the time that we've approved standards to the time we would start queuing them. So with the 5-year, otherwise it would end up being more of almost a 9-year from implementation. So.
Member Carey?
I have a motion to amend, and that would just be at the end after implementation to add the phrase "or sooner if good cause is shown."
So the motion is to add the phrase "or sooner if good cause is shown." Do we have a second? We have a second. Do you want to speak to that?
No, I just think that, the way it reads now, it seems the one and only time we have to make these revision consideration is after a minimum of 7 years. And I think that takes away a lot of discretionary decision-making by any party, including the board. And that's why I think it's a good addition.
Member Davis, you're in the queue, right? Yeah. Okay. So the motion before us is that that we add to the motion before us, the amendment is to add to the end after implementation or sooner unless good cause is shown.
Chair, if I may, instead of unless, it should say or sooner if good cause is shown.
Instead of unless, just put if. Okay. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just curious to know from staff, because I do agree that if there's some reason we need to change them before, I want to make sure that we retain that power. From staff's perspective, do we need to add this language, or is that already embedded into the process where we could, as a board, change this? Because I just also don't want to confuse staff to them what the definition of if good cause is shown would mean.
Who are we waiting on?
The staff. Actually, I wonder if we
Elise.
have that.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I was pulling up the policy, so now I've got my reference.
From what I'm understanding, Board Member Carey is saying that we want to make sure that we retain the right to implement these or do a queue them sooner if we feel like there's a reason to do that, and I do agree with that intent. I worry about it being part of this queuing portion. Maybe that part fits better with standards may be brought forward for revision without the queuing rubric when driven by legislative mandate or for good cause. So I'm wondering, without that wording attached to the 5-year piece or the 7-year piece, do we already have that right, or does it need to be explicitly outlined?
So while not in this document, in your policy 3002 that governs all of the standards review processes, there is, for example, so this isn't the entirety of it, but for example, part 6 is legislative driven standards review that allows for, say, if there is legislation that changes things, that you can go in and initiate a targeted standards review process. So there is exceptions allowed within your policy to step outside of the timeline that is being discussed today if there is good cause.
Yeah, follow up, please. With that, I actually don't mind that language that you have. I just where it's written, I would only support it if it was under the next bullet. So I'm gonna have to speak against the current amendment.
Member Lear?
I'm a little concerned about what, who determines good cause and how subjective that might be. I'm not, this seems like a burdensome, expensive, granted very crucial, but burdensome, expensive process. And I don't want to be in the position of 3 board members saying that we should review standards. And so I'm in favor of like tighter, I don't know, tighter guardrails is a bit of a contradiction in terms, but I'm in favor of a tighter time frame. I do agree with Amanda that the statement's in the wrong place. So I could also support it if it's in a different place, but I'm really reluctant to shorten the time period. And I'm also, the good cause shown makes me somewhat it makes me nervous because I think this board has not shown enough restraint sometimes in the things we do. And boards come and go. But I'm concerned that we could start a process that is, I don't want to make it too easy for a board to start this process. And I know we can change our policies and all of that, so maybe that's a pipe dream. But just had to express that. And I do think it needs to be moved if we keep it in.
I'm going to pause for a second. We have some discussion on location of this. We've hit our cap on amendments to amendments. And so dependent on this side conversation, there could be a motion to withdraw or we just take without objection, remove this type thing, but just waiting for these two to battle it out. No fists, no throwing hands? You know? Okay. Member Carey, go ahead.
Yeah, Chair, thank you for that courtesy. And based on the discussions I've had, I will withdraw I'll make a motion to withdraw my motion to amend, as I will be appending it to the 3rd bullet point in a subsequent motion. So with that, if there's a second, I will make my motion to withdraw my amendment.
There's a second. Is there any opposition to withdrawing that amendment? Not hearing any. I'm going to go right back to you, Member Carey. Or did you say that somebody else is going to make that amendment to put on the 3rd?
We would finish this amendment first.
You're right. Because you're right. Yeah. Thank you. I was distracted. I blame somebody else, of course. I always blame somebody. Okay. So the core standards then, the motion is that the core standards queuing rubric may only be brought forward for revision consideration after a minimum of 7 years of standards implementation. I don't see any. I'm hesitant to go right into voting since the individual who spoke against 7 is in a side conversation, and I don't know how long I can keep talking to give her time. Okay, she turned her light off, which means we're taking that as we're ready. Let's open voting and put this forward. Voting is open. That passes 12 in favor, 3 opposed. Those opposed being Member Carey, Member Earl, and Member Bogus. With that, Member Davis, I know you are queued up, but with the action that just happened, I'm going to go back to Member Carey. Member Carey, go ahead.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion, and that motion would be to add the language "or sooner if good cause is shown" following the third bullet point instead of the second bullet point where it was originally posted.
Okay, the motion's been stated. Do we have a second? Second. It's seconded. You want to speak to that, Member Carey?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Seeing no lights on this amendment, let's go ahead and put it to a vote. Voting is open. And that passes unanimously. Over to you, Member Davis.
I just couldn't have that document, but on number 4, I think it says in that step, the liaison for the writing committee and the liaison for the parent review committee meet together to review what the writing committee has written, and I assume get feedback from the parent committee. It said board members may attend this. Could the standards committee flesh out which board members may attend and to what degree is the participation? Are they there to try to, those individual board members, give feedback or try to change or give information on it? Or does the only feedback that goes back to the writing committee come from the standards committee and the full board or the full board? I'm hoping we can flesh that out. Where is that? It's in number 4. I think I just got out of that. Or is it 3?
It's the second bullet in section 3. Member Earl.
What they're meeting on, just to remind everyone, is what the board approved. So the board is approving recommendations. This meeting would be the liaisons from those 2 committees and board members that wanted to attend. We can flesh out whatever you want to flesh out. But I'm just want to be clear, it's not the writing has started. It's okay, here's the recommendations that the board approved. So to say, no discussion there, I think might be counterproductive. If it's better probably not to have them there if you're going to say here's the board recommendations, but board you can't engage. I don't know. I mean, this body, that's why I was surprised I didn't get any questions on this over the last week. But if we feel like there's still a lot more work, the committee's happy to still work and people can send us those questions. We're not in a crunch, right? So if you feel like there's some more work, we can accept those questions and we'll continue to work as a committee on it. I'm just throwing that out there because I have a few amendments and we're just right.
I move to postpone this back to committee so that Chair Earl can work on her amendments there and other board members can as well if they would like.
Okay, there's a move to send back to committee. It's been seconded. Is there any opposition to this? Okay, it's moved. All right. With that, I know we have two more action items, Chair Earl, but we also have lunch here, and I think we should probably break for that. Does that work for you, Chair Earl?
Yeah, yeah. Yes, we probably better.
Let's pause here. Let's break for lunch and get our competitive nature going, and then we'll come back here. Member Earl, go ahead.
Okay, so if you are doing cornhole with us, I'm understanding we're doing it in the basement if you want to come play a quick round of competition and also get your lunch. And the winner, I do have blackberry jam for the winner, so just telling you, I'm just throwing that out there for anybody listening. Bring your cornhole game downstairs and we'll get it set up.
All right, board members, your 30-minute lunch has gone over 50. Let's say hours. I mean, I'm a part of this too, but Jenny, I need a report on this cornhole. Yeah, we need it. As we're gathering together here, let's get a report.
I'll tell you, Todd and Greg were our top point getters today. So, you congratulate them. And then there was a dispersal of the others, and I can't remember scores and stuff, so I apologize. But we had 4 top winners. Yeah, Kelsey was in there. So, anyways, yeah, good stuff. And they got into the 70s. That was quite a bit of points because we were accumulating them. So
I heard that Greg may have been cheating. There he is in the back. I may have cheated, but Todd called more than okay.
It was because of the length of your arms and you were basically just dumping it in? Or? Yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. We are still in our standards and assessment report out. We are on agenda item 4.7. We are going to go back to Chair Earl. I saw a light come on. Member Bogus, is this in anticipation for the next motion, for the next agenda item? Perfect.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and begin. Chair Earl, please.
Yeah, so let me read the motion coming out of committee. The motion coming out of committee is that the board repeal the 2022 model policy and adopt the 2026 model policy draft 4 on second and final reading. And I do have an amendment.
Okay, so the motion that came out of committee is that the board repeal the 2022 model policy and adopt the 2026 model policy draft 4 on second and final reading. Back to you, Chair Earl.
Yeah, so we had some question at the end of our committee meeting on a provision in there related to sensitive materials, and if we could add a provision that said other items. And my motion, does someone have that? My motion, I reached out to AG Goff, right? Am I saying that right? He actually did a pretty deep dive research piece to this, and he had a motion that he recommended. And so that is the motion that I'm going to be making here. And let me tell you I don't 4.8 maybe? No, 4.7.
So we're working off of draft 4, and you're looking at section 4. Sorry, Jenny, we're trying to follow along here.
Yeah, so page 10, if you go, it's 4.7. And if you go into the document, the draft 4, and you go to page 10, it's item number 4 on that page 10. So that they're just telling you where we're at. I'm going to hang on a second. So you're good.
One more clarity. Sorry, you said 7, then you said 4. I'm on page 10, number 7, where it says materials removed, but you're saying that's not it.
Page 10, and it's 4.
4 D, E, or F? That's 4 is on the.
4, yeah.
Starts on page 9.
4 starts on page 9 and finishes on page 10.
Concerns of sensitive material, challenges alleging the materials contain sensitive material. Do you see where that's at? Go up. It's up. It's further up. It's 4. Right there. No, is that right? Are you in draft 4? Is that page 10? Go down. That's page 9. Where's my glasses? It should start with concerns of sensitive material, challenges alleging the material. So wherever that is. Is this right?
It looks like it's 4A. On 4A on page 6.
No.
That's where it says concerns of sensitive materials. 4A on page 6?
I don't think it's in draft 4. Oh, maybe it is. Where's? What am I off on then? It's not page. Oh, okay, sorry, it will be page 6 on yours. I don't know why I put that down wrong. It's 4A. Yep, that's it right there. Okay, so here's where this is the. Now I got to go find my amendment. It is on page 6. My apologies. I don't know where I messed up on that. Okay. So we can leave animal abuse in. In code, it's obscene animal abuse means something specific, but animal abuse can stay. We just need to strike as referenced in section 76-5C-10. So that needs to be stricken. That would be my first motion right there.
Okay, so the motion, sorry, you want to keep animal abuse in, so it will say obscene animal abuse?
Nope, it should just say animal abuse. Obscene animal abuse has a very specific term. So it wouldn't, okay. Let me just explain. This is what happened in committee. The question about other was what was brought up. Obscene animal abuse is listed under the legal section, so it can't be listed here. So we'd need to strike obscene and then strike out as referenced, yes.
So the motion is to strike obscene and as referenced in section 76-5C-10. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there a second to this motion? There's a second to it. Did you want to?
I'll briefly speak on it. The question came up, can sensitive materials be other than the sexualized content or pornography or that kind of thing? And the answer is yes. But if it has a legal piece, it needs to be under the legal section. This section just says other, and it lists off some other things that could be considered if they meet the criteria. Just, I don't know
So
if
we're
that.
not removing the legal requirement. I just
Nope.
want to make that clear.
Yep.
That we're not removing that.
And
Okay.
because it's under the other piece.
Right.
So.
Remember, Lear, you have your light on. Is that to this? Okay, go ahead.
Know if this is, who added this, the et cetera bothers me, because that suggests it's open-ended.
It could be other things. Yeah, an entity could have other things that they.
In terms of a model policy, that troubles me, because I think we should either state what we think should be included or.
Well, I think,
not.
I don't know that you could always guess what could be there.
And yet, we've got obscene animal abuse or some variation of that. I just think once you start throwing et ceteras into policies, it makes suggestions that I'm not necessarily comfortable. I think this is too broad, and broadening it one whit offends me. So the et cetera really bothers me. But you explained that, yes, you want to have it in there. It's not an oversight.
No, it's not an oversight. The reason why it's in there is because there could be other things that are considered. And if you look at the criteria, what constitutes material not educationally suitable to the age of the students. So you can't, I don't think we could guess at all the possible things that could fall under that. So it's going to be that committee that will make that decision. And this is subjective, not objective materials. That's.
Which, shoot me now.
Okay. Say that.
I would rather not.
I just.
Okay.
Okay.
So the motion before us is to strike obscene and as referenced in section 76-5C-10. I've got Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. When I listened to the committee discussion about that, there was some discussion about some of these other words in the same section, since we're talking about this page 6. So my question would be to the maker of the motion, the words violence and self-harm that are in here. I know that Member Britton brought up a great point in committee that we talk about wars in history that have violence. We're required by law to teach about self-harm in our health classes. So is this going to prevent any of that content from being in a library? I just feel like are we giving two different requirements to a school? Do those words have to be in here? So if you could maybe help me understand that part.
What you're doing is saying it's not just pornography that would require something to not be age appropriate. It could be language. It could be, by taking those out, you're saying, well, we're really not, it's not the other. You could do other, etc., which doesn't make sense, but this gives some ideas of things that would not be appropriate. Yeah, you're going to talk about self-harm, but once again, the material is not educationally suitable to the age of the students, and it would be a group of parents and educators that are making that decision. I think if you're talking about your health curriculum stuff, I'm sure that you've got people that can say, no, this is educationally suitable. I would think. And the same thing with the vulgarity, that you would, you could weigh that out according to the age of the students. That's why it's subjective, is that it allows for that criteria with the community group.
Thank you for that explanation. Then maybe, if I may, through you, Chair, maybe we can direct this to AAG Cooper, I guess, because the section that it's written in is not the age-appropriate section. It's the library material review. So the way that I read it makes it seem like it should be removed if it has those things in it. So I guess with AAG Cooper, if you can help us understand, if we put those words in, would it constitute the need to remove any materials that have that in there, or would it still be subjective up to the committees?
It's got to run through the committee, and then the committee decides. And we had some discussion whether or not, if somebody ran it through the committee and it was found to be a subjectively sensitive material, that does pull it out of the entire school district, though, the entire LEA. So what we need them to do is actually be better about deciding whether or not they're running things through the committee, because it should only really be for the things that are challenged. Am I answering the question you actually asked, or just the question I wish you had asked?
So maybe I can do a scenario to help me. So if a parent wanted to challenge a book that was in a library about the Civil War because it has violence in it, it would then trigger a removal from the whole district of that book.
If it's actually found to be subjectively sensitive material. I think that if it was found in an age-appropriate school, because that's one of the things that you look at in the subjective, I think it would probably be fine. It's just if you actually say it is subjectively sensitive for everybody is when it gets pulled. I don't feel like I'm answering your question.
But would it be pulled as soon as it's challenged, or would it be pulled only after
after the review?
I've got Member Bogus and then Member Earl.
So if Member Earl wants to answer that question, I'm fine. I can go after that.
You want to respond, Member Earl?
Remember that this is a review of materials, so there's a question brought up whether it is a sensitive material. So and this section deals with that it could be sensitive material is the broad, it could be both, right? They're going to do a quick review to see if it's objective. If it's not objective, then it goes into subjective, and it has a whole different criteria that it follows for that. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but.
Okay. So as far as I understand, the motion that's before us is to remove obscene and as referenced in section 76-5C-10. Member Bogus, to the motion.
Yeah, to the motion. In particular, it does not seem that 76-5C-10 actually exists, because I wanted to look at what we were removing, and so I'm wondering if that is an error, if anybody knows what the actual code line is, because that does not appear to exist. So I know exactly what we're striking.
Yeah, it should make your voting easier. I don't know.
101.
Definitions.
Yeah, it is. So then, thank you for that, Vice Chair Wood. So then with that, my question is, why would we want to take that out when we have an explicit definition?
I know Member Earl talked about this already. Do you want to go ahead?
It doesn't, obscene animal abuse does not fall under subjective, it falls under objective, and so it's down further. We're not taking that out. We're just saying that animal abuse could be considered under the sensitive materials as far as the subjective portion.
Okay, so
Does
sorry, I
that
wasn't fully tracking. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's fine.
Laura, go ahead.
Yeah, Chair Hymas, if I can maybe clarify that a little bit. Your objective are going to be the things that are set out in statute, that these are actually offenses. Your subjective is going to be stuff that doesn't come in the statute. So it's kind of, if you think of it as a catch-all, that things that are not defined as crimes, but they are things that people might find offensive. And then you have to look at it and determine whether or not it's offensive in that particular context. And that's why you've got to move the obscene animal abuse, because that is a specific statutory definition.
Yep. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. If I may direct a question to Davina. Sorry to put you on the spot. I'm curious to know the impact of this language on page 6, on draft 4, with those pieces, with the violence and the self-harm. What kind of an impact is that going to have on our process? Or do you as a staff and expert have concerns about any of that, or are you supportive of that?
Can I interrupt? I'm sorry to do this to you, Amanda. That part is not relevant right now.
Well, it's in the section.
I know it's in the section, but since there's no motion, do you know what I mean? If there was a motion, we could discuss it, but I'm just trying to
I guess I'm
track
just trying
this.
to decide if I'm going to amend the motion.
I see.
That's why I'm
I see. Well, let's take care of this motion, and then we'll be on the general, and then we can discuss it, if that makes sense. So are there any other questions to this? Yeah, Davina, start anticipating her question. And then, are there any other questions on this motion? I'm not seeing any. I'm going to state it one more time. We can make or start voting here. And the motion is that the board amend the 2026 model policy draft 4, page 6 to strike obscene and as referenced in section 76-5C-101. Let's go ahead and vote on this amendment. Okay, that passes 13 in favor, 1 opposed, 1 absent, the opposition coming from Member Lear. And so that brings us back to the entire thing. I've got. Yeah, okay. Okay, let's do it. Let me get there you go.
It's corresponding because it cleans up the provision that we asked about. Okay, so it's page 13, I believe. Number 7, and let me get to my email real quick here where I sent it. Okay. So this is this was what was suggested to put in. So I'm going to read down through it. It's a little bit long. The review committee will evaluate, I can't read the rest of my, do you have it up there? Page. Oh, yeah. No, that's not it. I have a motion. It's cutting it off. Oh, no, I think I'm okay here. Okay, so page 13.7, it should say the review committee will evaluate the material using the subjective factor balancing standard. Am I right? Is everybody there? Okay. So the recommendation is to strike in deciding whether the material constitutes, so striking that. So it would read subjective sensitive material is, and then it would strike the committee must consider whether so material is material that is harmful to minors under Utah Code 76-5C-101 8A, pornographic under Utah Code 76-5C 101, or includes fondling or other erotic touching of the human buttocks or female breast, striking taken as a whole. And then adding under A, in deciding whether the material is harmful to minors, the committee must consider whether the material contains a depiction or representation of nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement. Okay, how do you say that one? There you go. Abuse, sexual conduct with an animal or animal crushing, that, taken as a whole, appeals to the prurient interest of sex of minors. 2, is patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community as a whole with respect to what is suitable material for minors. And 3, does not have serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value or for minors. The addition would be this 4. In deciding whether material is harmful to minors, the committee may also consider whether the other criteria found to be harmful to minors, such as violence, pervasive vulgarity, animal abuse, or self-harm. We didn't put a cetera on that one, so that's a question. In deciding whether the material is pornographic, the committee must consider whether the material, when applying contemporary community standards, the material taken as a whole appeals to prurient interest in sex, the material is patently offensive in the description or depiction of the nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, say it again, sadomasochist, abuse and erection or excretion. 3, taken as a whole, the material or performance does not have serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value, and it would strike A, which is the last piece there. So.
All right, Jenny.
Okay, and I'm just telling you, I worked with AAG Goff on that one to make sure that was articulated from the law, it was exact, and it was, so, okay.
Well, and maybe it's just this table here, but you're halfway through and I'm like, I'm not tracking any of this, you know? And all I can think about is Stephen King. He's going to do another report saying, hey, Utah hates my books. Yeah.
This is the law section, more or less is what it is.
I get all this.
Okay.
What I'm wondering is, does this need to, this is a lot. This is not a quick amendment. Does this need to go back to committee? Or has this been discussed in committee?
You can do whatever you want.
That's the question. If we're going to.
This was the question.
Mm-hmm.
This answer is the answer I got, which was the question at the end of our committee meeting. We asked AAG Goff to go look at it, do an in-depth review of it. This was his answer. So if you want to send it back to committee, we can do that.
And this replaces, so this section that you just read through here replaces 7, ultimately.
Yes. If you'd like it back into committee, we're happy to take it.
Well, even if you look after 7, it's number 12. I don't know what, you know what I mean? Like there's some, so something's happening here. That's what I'm like, I just don't know. I'm not sure what to do or how much time to take. Well, I'm not going to, that's an easy numbering thing, right? But I just want to make sure that this was prepared to come out of committee. And this is a big lift.
You can send it back. My point was, at the end of the committee, we asked AAG Goff to work on this. This is what he sent back. So I'm giving you what he sent back. If it doesn't align and we want to send it back, we're good with that. Does that make sense? If we need to, but if it's a numbering thing.
It does make sense. I guess for me, and I'll close down my comments after this. For me, it's this is a lot, and I know it makes sense to Darren Goff. This just goes back to me. Like, honestly, if I voted for this, it's because I trust our AAGs. It's not because I've had time to process this, right? That's what I'm saying.
What it is the law. It's what he's doing is articulating the provisions of the law. This is not him writing this up. This is taking the law, putting it in here so it's clearly spelled out.
Yeah, this isn't Jenny's comments that she came up with. This is, you had a question at the end of committee. This is the response, right?
Well, and let me just be clear what the question was. The question was, it was around the other piece. Can other things be considered? Or is it only pornographic content? Could other things, or does it have to be this narrowly focused? The answer is no, it doesn't have to be, but it can't be. It has to be restricted to the criteria within the law. So this is the answer to that. This body can decide what they want to do.
It's true. That's helpful for me. Thank you. Member Lear.
A question. 4 years ago when we started this, it made sense to have this model policy. But now, Jenny, this is kind of for you. Maybe you don't care, but I just said, I said when we started this was, it made sense to have a model policy. But now LEAs have their model policies, and now we're throwing monkey wrenches into their model policies. And I didn't see anywhere in the law or in our board rule where a model policy was required. Where, and would, can somebody point me to it? Because I could not, and I didn't do an exhaustive.
It's R277-628.
And it says?
And it says that each LEA shall have a policy, and then we provide the model policy.
It doesn't, does it say literally that the board, I did not see that in 628.
So does it say literally what?
Does it say literally the board shall provide a model policy? I did not see that in 628. Maybe I overlooked it.
Yeah, I don't know the exact.
I'm just wondering if we just leave well enough alone. Or
Yeah, because our policy that's currently on
well, then we repeal our policy because they all have a policy. And stop trying to update and then require the LEAs can update their policies as required, because we provided the model policy once, got them started, and now, and in reference to our chair's comment about local control, which I also try to live by, they can now move on with their own changes and updates. But unless you tell me that we have to have a model policy per the law or even our board rule, and I did not see it in 628.
I do believe it says the superintendency may provide a guidance document for use by an LEA in developing an LEA's policy and accompanying procedures.
May provide a guidance document.
May
which we
provide a
also
guidance
did,
document.
but not a
In
model
full
policy.
disclosure, I'm using AI, not high obscenity, whatever AI. It's just hybrid.
High
Yeah,
obscenity.
could be. It's just
Could be the other.
okay.
Okay, I just posed that question to say, is this, if this is not necessary now, if it's outlived its usefulness, why are we still wrestling with it? When it's not required in law, it's not even required in board rule, we have guidance, we provided it in the past. Does anybody, that's not semi-rhetorical, if anybody has an answer for that, I'm troubled because I think we are doing more harm than good to our LEAs.
I think we're off track again. We're talking to the general rule or the general policy right here and rule, whereas we need to address this motion.
Well,
I know.
Yes, although it could be in lieu of this. I'm just, you're right. I just think that addressing this as a whole maybe makes more sense than nitpicking it. But if we want to nitpick, then
Well, let's get
I'll vote
back
on
to this motion before us, and I really don't want to read it yet, but it is before us, and so I'm going to move to Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. I speak in favor of the motion. I think if we give guidance and that guidance is outdated or it's erroneous, this body has an obligation to update it. We just did that in June with our religious liberty. You know, the guidance that we've been giving schools was based on case law from the 1970s. And the Supreme Court changed that, and this body took action to reflect those changes. The language that's here is textbook constitutional law when it comes to obscenity and pornography. This is the constitutional test to determine what makes something obscene. So this isn't a creative interpretation, and you can see that an attorney wrote this. I imagine that it was AAG Goth or someone from his team. This is the standard. And if guidance we've given to LEAs previously conflicts with this, I think we have an obligation to say, hey, not that we got it wrong, but it's changed. Like, this is the standard. So, yeah, and if we articulated it poorly before, yeah, let's get it right instead of having these schools continue down a path that puts them in legal jeopardy, causes confusion among the ranks. Yeah, if we could get it right every time, that's fantastic. But to the extent we didn't, we have an opportunity to correct it now, and I think that that's our role. Thank you, Chair.
All right. I am going to read this motion. I'm not going to take any other comments unless they come forward now. Okay. I know. I'm going to let me say this 3 times in a row. Sadomasochistic. Okay. All right. The motion to amend is that the board amend the 2026 model policy draft 4, page 13, number 7, to strike, in deciding whether the material constitute, the committee must consider whether the, and taken as a whole, and amending the line to read, subjective sensitive material is material that is harmful to minors under Utah Code 76-5C-101, paren 8, paren A. Pornographic under Utah Code 76-5C-101, or includes fondling or other erotic touching of the human buttock or female breast. And that the board amend the 2026 model policy draft 4, page 13, number 7, to read as follows. A, in deciding whether the material is harmful to minors, the committee must consider whether the material contains a description or representation of nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, sadomasochistic abuse, sexual conduct with an animal or animal crushing that, taken as a whole, appeals to the prurient interest in sex of minors. I, is patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community as a whole with respect to what is suitable material for minors. And I, does not have serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value for minors. B, in deciding whether material is harmful to minors, the committee may also consider whether the other criteria found to be harmful to minors, such as violence, pervasive vulgarity, animal abuse, or self-harm. C, in deciding whether the material is pornographic, the committee must consider whether the material, 1, when applying contemporary community standards, the material, taken as a whole, appeals to prurient interests in sex. 2, the material is patently offensive in the description or depiction of nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, sadomasochistic abuse or excretion, and 3, taken as a whole, the material or performance does not have serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Okay. And then A, may consider the other criteria found to be harmful to minors, such as violence, pervasive vulgarity, animal abuse, as referenced in section 76-5C-101, or self-harm, is stricken. Let's go ahead and vote. Have you guys seen that video? I know we're doing this while voting. You seen that video of the kid who struggles to read a new word, and nobody knows the context, but the question is this student a poor reader, right? Because he can't read this word. You might ask, is Matt a poor reader? Because he can't say, right? I'd argue that, well, there's no argument. Yes, I am a poor reader, but that is a new word. There's a couple. What's the other one? Prurient? Federally what? Defined term that Matt needs to look up. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That motion passes unanimously. We are over to Vice Chair Bollinger.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And if I can just direct a question to Davina, with this new model policy, and I realize this model policy is not necessarily mandated for districts to use. They have to make a policy, but they can make their own policy. Are there any portions, and specifically when we were talking about those couple of words, do you see that as a concern for local LEAs in their processes? And just want to get your thoughts.
Vina Southoff, Library Media Specialist, Teaching and Learning. I think it would be important that the committees are well trained on the differences between the definition of subjective sensitive materials according to statute and all of the other things that we might evaluate a Title IV. We definitely evaluate for age appropriateness, developmental appropriateness, et cetera. And so I think my one concern from the field is that a committee may not have all of the training they need to be looking at the law specifically when they're talking about pornographic, or in the definition is pornographic and indecent material, according to the III that we just had Chair Hymas read for us, versus the age appropriate that might, self-harm in middle school. We might not want to have a title that has self-harm that talks about self-harm in middle school versus high school and so forth. So it'd be very important that committees are well trained on how to differentiate between statute and then anything else.
Thank you. Just to follow up, I know that with the sex ed materials, there's very clear guidance that's used to train those committees. Do we have plans or support or some kind of document that then LEAs can use as they're training their committees from USBE so we can help support that?
Oh. Okay, thank you. Actually, certain health courses are exempt from sensitive materials. And I can't remember the name of the statute right now or the number of the statute, but, and I have worked closely with Jody Parker, our health specialist here. She has a course where sensitive materials is included in that course for training teachers on utilizing, knowing the difference between what should be allowed and not allowed according to statute.
Maybe I wasn't clear on my question. My question was more for the committees reviewing the sensitive
okay.
materials, not the sex ed. I'm saying they have a really good process for the sex ed materials.
I
Do we have
apologize.
plans to support LEAs with training materials or documents so they can clearly train their committees?
Yes, we have training materials out there. We have a flow chart that walks through all of the steps and defines, it lays out exactly, like, this is what the definition of objective and subjective are differences there. And the other thing I would add is that most of our districts have updated their policies as of 2024 when the statute originally changed. And many of our districts, not necessarily our charter schools, have an age appropriate separate section because they recognize that there's a need for that there. However, when you get down to the committee moment in time, they're not always going through all of the pieces that are in their policies. If the review comes in, the challenge comes in and says, I'm challenging this for sensitive materials, a committee can kind of veer away from, as they're reading the book in its entirety, a lot of discussion happens. And so it's sometimes hard to navigate that, even with training, to navigate that language and make sure that the committees are staying focused on the issue at hand.
Member Earl.
Before you cut me off, Davina did a fabulous job at rural schools talking with the district. She does a great job. I've seen her do this and present information for them. So just letting you know, as far as, when people call her, also she's out there presenting this so it's clear on what they can use and the resources available. So.
All right. So the motion before us is that the board repeal the 2022 model policy and adopt the 2026 model policy draft 4 as amended on second and final reading. Let's vote. That passes unanimously. Back to you, Chair Earl.
This is, hopefully you listen to our committee. If not, I'd go listen to this. This is the USEEP recommendations. This is our Utah Special Education Advisory Panel who advises us. They had a number of recommendations. Those are listed in our, just in our document here. But the motion is that the board accept the USEEP recommendations in the memo titled 2026 Utah Special Education Advisory Panel USEEP memo, teacher recruitment and retention for consideration, and that the new USB leadership standards are reflective of the USEEP recommendations.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board accept the USEEP recommendations in the memo titled 2026 Utah Special Education Advisory Panel Memo, Teacher Recruitment and Retention for consideration, and that the new USBE leadership standards are reflective of the USEEP recommendations. Seeing no lights, let's vote.
Remind me.
That motion passes 13 in favor, 1 abstention, 1 no vote. The abstention from Member Green, the no vote from Member Bogus. Back to you, Chair Earl.
We're done. Thank you. That was lots of work.
Okay, that wraps up agenda item 4.